myself on being on time.
You are on time. That's a very good quality to have. I had a client that was a motivational speaker, always said, always show up 10 minutes early. Never late.
Yep. Never late. Never late. Sometimes when you show up early, good things happen too.
Oh, that's very true. And the thing about consistency is people know they can trust you and count on you, which is why we come every Friday, every morning. We've not missed a show, not a week. And
not one.
I just realized today we are really winding up season 3 here. Only a couple more.
Gosh, you're kidding me.
6 more shows, 5 more after this. 26 per season.
All right.
Yeah. Welcome to Over 50, starting over, everybody. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
I thought you forgot.
Hey, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday, man. How was your week?
I only know one person that's forgotten their name on the show.
Yeah. The infamous time
I've had. It was great. I love that. I've had a crazy week here. It started out on Sunday morning when I woke up, and I kind of slept in on Sunday, and I looked over at the clock on my wife's side. She had already gotten out of bed, and I thought, God, what time is it? I looked, and
time change.
Oh my God, it's 11 o'clock. Wait, it can't. And I looked at my clock, and it was 10. And I'm like, and it was the thing that happens, that you dread happening on daylight savings, is that no one told you, or you didn't even know about it, and you lose an hour. And I was jacked up all day because of that.
I know. And
it just threw me off. It just totally threw me off. And I thought it was a mistake. I thought Anne Marie actually set her clock an hour ahead because we were in Arizona, which was an hour ahead. And I thought maybe she just got that messed up. And I looked at my watch, which I had not moved forward. So I looked at it and I'm like, okay, she messed up because my watch is still saying an hour ahead. And then I'm like, wait a second, let me pick up my phone. And I look at my phone, and my phone is always up to date. It said it was 11.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is 11.
I'll tell you.
And I was like in the twilight zone for the rest of the day.
Oh, I think you got more to the story because you said how your week. I asked you how you.
Well, so that's how it started, and then we had this whole debacle around our hot water heater this week.
What happened?
And so, I rent out here. It's very expensive. I rent out here. I've been doing that for a long time, and I have this really great landlord. I actually love him, and he decided that he was going to change the hot water heater. The hot water heater was fine. It wasn't broken. It was old. But we've never had a problem. We've never run out of hot water before.
He wanted a more efficient one, save a few bucks.
He actually, that wasn't the case. He just thought it was getting old. I guess the last one was back in 2007, and he thought, I'm just going to replace this. Well, Anne Marie had a bunch of concerns about this. One was he wanted that she was like, please don't do this before we leave town, because what if something happens after we leave and the place floods? And I was thinking, I can't see that happening, but I've learned not to argue. Well, whatever. I don't care when it goes in. Okay, fine. And then she was concerned about the pedestal that it's sitting on. And she says, that just doesn't look sturdy. And I'm like, looks fine. I don't care. That's fine. And then my landlord comes over, before the guy comes over to look at it and everything. Anne Marie shows him the thing, and he says, "Oh, it's fine." And then he says, "My wife, it's her birthday. I'm going out of town." And Anne Marie speaks. He's going out of town. What if something happens? I'm like, what is he going to do? He's out of town. I mean, he can't do anything. So he goes out of town. Bottom line, the guy shows up hours late. You know how it goes. That's how everything happens.
Sure.
I'm upstairs in my office doing work. I get a panic text, come down here now. I come down. The guy has the thing installed. It's falling through the pedestal now. It's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's on now. I can kind of smell gas. It's making a ticking sound. Tick, tick, tick. It sounds like it's going to blow up. And Marie's like, call the landlord. And I call him up, and he's like, what am I going to do? I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but your house is about to be destroyed. And long story short, we had more repair people come that couldn't speak English, and we were out there all day. Wow. They spoke Spanish. I was trying to speak to them from my Spanish in high school.
Sure.
And they acted like they couldn't understand me.
Yeah.
Probably because I can't speak Spanish. I was like, trying my best Spanish on them. They were like, oh. Right. Anyway, but we finally got it fixed. We got hot water. I finally was able to take a shower, but that's my week.
Wow, man, that was rough.
That was like for 2.5 days. We were having to hang out in the garage, during the day because the repair people were back in the back, not really watching. I got all my bicycles out there and everything. That was just inconvenient.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Last Saturday, you made me think of this. It was a beautiful day. It was only 35 degrees, but it was like really still and sunny, like one of those. And I had a volunteer gig that I signed up for at the Nature Center where I joined a whole bunch of other volunteers in shoveling mulch into wheelbarrows and taking it on.
That's hard.
Building the trails.
That's
good exercise for 3 hours on Saturday during that. So the weather was such that it was kind of perfect. I had a heavy long sleeve shirt on. That's all I needed. And it was perfect. And it was so fun because at the end of this, okay, I didn't know anyone else's names, but I knew their favorite food. I knew what they did for a living, and a number of other things. We just had that kind of banter. It was a real sense of community. Yeah. It was fun.
That's really cool.
Really rewarding. And I bring it up because, guys, we've been cooped up so much and everything. This is good for the soul stuff. So if it inspires you to go out and do some kind of volunteer, man, you won't regret it. You won't regret it. I had so much fun.
That sounds really cool. Okay, how come you didn't know anybody's name?
I didn't ask. Nobody asked. Okay. I just we're shoveling. I broke the ice. I'm like, all right, what's your favorite food? While I'm shoveling, pizza, Mexican, all this. Where's your favorite place? All of that. So it was really fun. And then the one lady, older lady, is she does something in medical. She's got a PhD in studying bacteria and stuff. So I talked to her. I'm like, wow, during COVID, I bet your job changed a lot. She's like, you're not kidding. The funding and everything, the motivation for everything changed. A younger girl, there are several case students there. And the younger girl was, I say younger, probably like 24 or something, but she was a biologist who is working in an ER. So a biology major that I don't know how that works, but her whole goal in life is to work in an ER, and she's been interning or whatever you call that as such. So that really interesting people, really good people. There's something about, I'm going to tell you right now, when you volunteer, you weed out all the undesirables and then some. You're now dealing with top tier people as far as good people. So it's really nice.
I've experienced that before too. Yeah, that is really nice. It's really nice. Anytime you're involved in any kind of volunteer thing or charity thing, it's usually the case that happens. I love that, Barry. Really cool stuff.
All right. Merle, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to turn to the week and really the business side of things. I don't know if you're seeing things out there the way that I'm seeing, Barry, but it seems like we're starting to make a turn here. And I say that really based on my outreach that I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of cold calling, a lot of outreach, and it's been frustrating, I have to admit, because it's almost like, well, is anybody there? Nobody answers the phone. I send out all these emails and all this kind of stuff, and nobody ever responds. And it started to feel like, well,
it's like you're Will Smith and I Am Legend trying to do sales. And there's nobody there to do sales.
Yeah, there's nobody. I just put a bunch of mannequins out there and talk to them. And that's but over the last couple of weeks, it's like fishing. I'm getting nibbles, people are responding.
What month are you on?
This will be my 6, 7, 8, eighth month, I think.
But 8th. Okay. Yeah. 6 to 8 months short. It should. if it were normal times, that by month
Yeah.
6 or whatever, things start to really start picking. But now
it's not normal times. Yeah,
right.
It's very weird times, and it has, let's face it, it can have a psychological effect where you start to think, man, I'm not really that good at this anymore.
Absolutely.
That's not the case. It's just the times that we're in, and things seem to be turning around. People are starting to focus more on the business of the day rather than just COVID. And I'm getting people on the phone. I'm getting people that want to meet finally. I'm seeing light at the end of the tunnel on the business front. How about you?
Well, I haven't been doing prospecting per se in that way. I've been more or less working on my material that, geez, I sound like a stand-up comic, but in a sense, yeah, that I'm going to be reaching out to chambers of commerce and other organizations like this to present several different things. That's what I'm working on right now. So I'm not doing direct outreach. So I wanted to
my
ask
business
you
is
about
100%
Yes.
that too. So you've got an established business, and mine is, I'm trying to get mine off the ground here.
Of course. No, so I totally understand that. As I don't know if you have more that you want to talk to about that as part of our business development career self-improvement section up front that we do. I wanted to go with the self-improvement thing that I read that I want to share with you that you're going to love. So I wanted to see if you had more to.
I do actually. I
Go
just,
ahead.
it's interesting to see in the really, I work with the hospitals in the country and seeing what's happening, especially how they've been hit by COVID, and what they did was it really hurt them hard. Hospitals right now are operating at somewhere below 30% below margin, and they were already operating at razor thin margin. So these guys, they've got a heck of a job going forward. But this week I got to meet with a pretty unique organization, and the guy that I met with graduated from the same college the same year that my daughter graduated.
Oh,
and I thought that was really interesting, and it was kind of fun too. Of course, my daughter, she's 27 now, and she's very successful in business as a graphic design employee for this hair product company. She's doing great. But so this guy we meet with, and I see him on LinkedIn first, and I see his picture because I always do my research beforehand, and he looks like he's 14. And I'm like, well, we're meeting with this guy. And so we show up for the video conference, and he's got his mask on. And that happens every once in a while because people are in offices with other people and stuff like that. But he had such a baby face on the LinkedIn, and he's got his mask on, and I've got 3 people there, and he slowly pulls his mask off. He's got this huge mustache, and this is just so shocking when it just came out of there. This huge mustache comes out, and we were all stunned, like deer in the headlights. And I couldn't help saying, "Well, you look at your mustache." And then I just started. We all laughed and everything. I said, we saw your LinkedIn picture earlier, and he goes, "Oh my God, I got to update that." And I said, "Yeah, looks like you haven't updated it since you were 12 or 13. I think so. Really broke the ice there. Took a risk, but we all laughed, had a great time. It's just fun. Meeting with people my kids' age now. That's really something.
Yeah, that is something. And I mean, some of these young people that they're so smart and so technically
and this guy was. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's really fun to see that. I mean,
it is. It's cool.
Our world has changed so much in the past 20 years that, my God, we need some young, smart injection of blood into our system. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
anyway, that's what I had.
Okay. I like that one. That's very interesting. What I wanted to discuss was a few days ago, I was listening to Wayne Dyer's a podcast, Hay House podcast with Dr. Wayne Dyer. Now, Dyer passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. But
I was going to say, how did he do that?
Yeah, it's a seance, basically. It's a live seance. So apparently he was on a radio show like weekly or something, and he would take a call, like usually about 10 minutes or so. So each one of these is only about 10 minutes. They release it one a week, pretty much. I only discovered it a few months ago. And this one was so good. It's so good in its simplicity. And I've always appreciated that about Dyer, because I always read all these different self-help people, whatever you want to call them, metaphysical authors. Like Dyer always reminded me of Deepak Chopra, who for some reason I haven't heard much about him in years, but he's a very deep metaphysical. He's a PhD Indian guy. His stuff would be so difficult to read. I'd have to reread it and reread each paragraph, but it was so like inspiring and deep. And today Jordan Peterson is the same thing for me. I have to one of his 2-hour podcasts, I have to re-listen to it and stuff because it's so deep but so meaningful. Dyer always had this way of taking these same concepts and making them so simple. So this caller comes in. It's a lady. She calls in and she's like, I'm always trying to reach. She's like, I follow all your stuff. I got your books. I read your books, and I'm always trying to reach a higher level of happiness, as you call it, a vibrational level. But how do I do that while people are always pushing my buttons? And that was the question. And I thought it was a really good one. A lot of us can relate to. And he said, well, he goes, I think about, he goes, from time to time, you may hear me use the orange analogy. And he means the fruit. And he says, no matter who you are, and no matter when this is, if you squeeze this orange, you're going to only get orange juice out of this orange. Okay. So it's the same for everybody. Doesn't matter what time of day. No circumstances can change. Only orange juice will come out of this orange. So take a gut check on your own about yourself. When people squeeze you, what's coming out? You're saying someone's pushing your buttons, and this kind of hatred's coming out. This discontent is coming out. It's because that's what you're filled with. He goes, and that's true. It's true. But okay, so now I typically would listen to authors who would give me very deep psychological remedies to this problem that may span the next hour. Here's what he said. And it always gets back to something that he always said. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And I know that sounds deep, or it sounds like a tricky play on words. Here's the perfect explanation of one of these examples. He said, what I do when somebody so-called is trying to push my buttons, I see it as a place of gratitude that I have this opportunity to practice and hone my skills in reaching out in love. And he goes, and he used this story. He goes, just the other day, I had to call up like a telecommunications company and talk to a customer service rep. You know how that can be, and to try to remedy a problem. And I got this customer rep who was very short, very rude. And he goes, and I ended up spending 40 minutes on the phone with her. By the end of that conversation, she was so turned around and full of a place of love that I'm sure it permeated through the office for the rest of that day. He goes, that's what you have an opportunity to do. When somebody comes at you trying to push your button, and I could speak to this because I grew up in a very blue collar city, a very blue collar town. And this is what everybody did all day, every day. Try to make them
push each other's buttons.
Yes, because it would make you, when you got a reaction out of somebody, it's like
feel superior.
You unloaded your burden and gave it to them. Is kind of what it's like. Okay.
Yeah, so, I get exactly what you mean.
But what that means is somebody's got a burden. Well, you have a chance to bring some light into that. You could you could take that on, and now you both have a burden. In other words, negativity spreads, or you could take it as, oh, you recognize that, and you could put a little sunshine into it and make it dissipate, make it dissolve. That's what love does. That's an unconditional love response right there. But the bottom line is he said this so much cleaner and more crisp than I did, and more direct, is he just simply said, okay, you need to get out of a place where somebody else, you see yourself as a victim, that somebody else has control over you and your behavior, your feelings. And you need to take ownership of your own responsibility, your own responses, and see that, okay, now this changed the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Now you can look at this as an opportunity. Now you're looking at it in a state of gratitude. That's all the difference. You just went from a place of negativity to a place of gratitude, and it changes everything. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. So it will change
exactly right.
Change your entire environment.
That's the story of my life, actually.
It is.
I mean, that we've talked about this kind of stuff. I mean, it comes down to attitude, right? I mean, you can call it a lot of different things. By the way, I thought you explained that beautifully. I don't know if anybody could explain that any better than what you just did.
Wayne Dyer.
But yeah, well, we'll have to look at him. But we get the concept. I had a situation one time where I was walking down the street with Anne Marie, and we were coming home one night, and all of a sudden we were confronted by a pit bull that was off the leash. And looking like he was gonna, I had my dog with me too, looking like he was ready to attack my dog. And I in a split second, I mean, I remember it was like there was a light, it was nighttime, there was a light in our eyes, and then suddenly that dog was in front of us, and it was scary. And I very quickly grabbed a hold of he had a leash on. I grabbed his leash and I lifted him up in the air, like by the collar, so that he couldn't lunge at me and, bite me.
Good move.
And I had Anne Marie.
That's the only move.
Anne Marie I handed with the other hand, I handed the leash to Anne Marie and I said, go. And so while this was happening, I guess the owner of the dog he was a homeless guy. And I couldn't see him, but he saw me, and boy, was he mad. Well, of course, because I'm handling his dog in a way that he didn't like. And boy, he came running over there, and what are you doing to my dog? I said, look, your dog was off a leash. And long story short, the guy was mad. He called me the N-word. Mm-hmm. And I am not affected by that because I don't care what he thinks about that. It has no effect on me. But I kind of laughed. I said, did you just call me that? And he got right in my face and everything. I said, look, man, I'm just like you. You're trying to protect your dog. I want to protect my wife and my dog. And he goes, well, I can respect that. And I said, well, God bless you then. And he said, God bless you. That was the end of it.
That's a good story,
that's the thing, is I had an opportunity to show love and relate to the guy rather than go to blows. And what do you got to lose fighting a guy in the street over over a dog and everything? Right. This is stupid. But anyway, so it all ended up, we blessed each other. That was the end. I remember I got to the corner with Anne Marie and she was like, well, what did he say? I said, he said, God bless you.
Did you sneeze? That's a great story to the lesson that we just shared here. But here's another that I think I shared really early on in the podcast that speaks right to it is, so I grew up in this very blue collar town, as I said, and this is the way of life, is trying to push each other's buttons. It is a very low level, I think, mentality, a way to live. And I go off to college, I meet you and Scott, and I'm still doing the same stuff, like, trying to push buttons with a smirk on my face. And I was met with unconditional love and happiness. And it was like unerring. And it changed me. So this is what you do, is you plant a seed out there when you do this. It's not just about making your day better. This is the way you change people. You don't change people by confronting them. Then all they're doing is digging their heels in. No, right. Make the world a better place. You meet it with unconditional love. It plants a seed in. It changed me. I asked myself, man, what do they got that I don't have? And so I started looking at it that way. And so that's the story of pushing buttons and how to deal with it.
Wow. I was not expecting that, but I'm blown away by that story, Barry. And I'm speechless. Wow.
Well, that's awesome.
A supreme compliment.
And it goes to your brother as well. Because you guys, and it goes to your mother too. You guys were
she's
raised right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At a higher level. So, and it's affected me. You shared the stories with me throughout your life of growing up, and I take them on as my own lessons as well. I mean, it's miraculous stuff. Hey, just a segue.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Can I just say,
yeah,
parents just make all the difference, don't they?
Absolutely.
And just that unconditional love that you show to your kids. And it doesn't even matter if they're out of the house and grown up. I mean, my mom, I mean, she'll watch one of our podcasts and tell me that she's proud of me. And I mean, that I feel like I could walk on air, when I get that. And so just parents out there, make a point to tell your kids how proud you are of them. And you're right, though. That's a big deal. So thanks for saying that, Barry. I really appreciate that. Go ahead.
Sure. I will just say, as you talk about parenting, and I'm not a parent, but I'm a life observer is what I am. And I think about everything basically. But the thing about parenting, and it could be the same about any relationship, but it is a matter of unconditional love is the number one key ingredient, but it's a balance. It's a tightrope act because you also have to have tough love too at the right moments.
And that's unconditional love. I mean, to be honest,
explain that.
Okay. Here's the thing is that as a parent, your real desire for your kids is you want your kid to love you. And when they're screwing up and doing the wrong thing, your inner part of you doesn't want to discipline them because they're not going to like you. No kids, they're just not going to like you. And the thing about my parents was that and I've said this before on the show, they seem to not be afraid that I might hate them. Yeah. Because they loved me so much. They were willing to confront me and all my idiocracy that I had going on and call right and wrong. And I didn't like that. I really didn't like that. But they seemed to not care because they loved me more than they were willing to do what was right to protect me, even if I hated it. And to me, that's tough love, and that's also unconditional love. Because if they didn't love me, they wouldn't have taken the time to put themselves in that crappy position. Because when your kids are like angry with you because they don't like you because you're the person, that's a bad play. Being the bad guy sucks. But if you love your kids, you got to be the bad guy. That's your job. Your job isn't to be their friends when they're growing up. Your job is to raise them right so that they can have a productive and happy life and pass that on to their kids.
Just to play devil's advocate, because where things have gone wrong in the last generation or two is, I said this before, is when we were young, it was all about, our parents were from the 70s, especially a dad growing up in the 60s and 70s, super macho time and only showing anger and different things like that. And so
like Red Foreman.
Yeah. So exactly. That was my father.
Yeah, my dad was like that too.
The rest of our lives, we're trying to put our self-esteem back together. Everything was self-esteem, self-esteem. So we have kids and self-esteem. And it got so bastardized that we lost the regular plain nature underneath, pushing the bird out the nest, teaching the cub how to hunt and hard times. That's what all throughout nature, every species does you got to get hard on this kid so that it knows how to cope. Every species.
Yes.
Except
absolutely.
Us. And this is where we went wrong in our last generation, is overcompensating with coddling. And so not recognizing the tough love and unconditional love are one and the same as you just explained. So that went a little deeper.
No, but that's good stuff right there. Yeah. It's just so true. And a lot of parents, that are doing a great job of disciplining their kids and being right there for them.
Balance,
there's a guilt that happens on the inside. And parents have to encourage each other, because like, for instance, disciplining your kids should never come from a place of anger. If you're angry and you want to discipline your kids, you should probably take a break, go someplace, go to your room or something until you calm down and think about it rationally. Discipline is good. But when you're angry and you discipline, that can be harmful. So you have to, be measured with your discipline. And so it's sort of like the email thing that we talked about, where you want to write an angry email.
That's right.
Don't send it. Wait a day and then look at it the next day and then edit it, because these things live forever. I mean, it's the same thing. If you say something those things live forever too in people's memory. I can, you talked about your dad and self-esteem. As soon as you said that, I remembered like 10 things my dad said to me that I was like, oh God, I would fire you. He said that a few times. I got fired a few times. I'm not your son anymore. Is that what that means? No, I was his son.
I have taken our own advice here a lot recently, several times, meaning starting an email and waiting a day on it because of our own conversations in the back of my head.
Yep.
That is great advice. It's great advice. All right.
I got it from Abraham Lincoln.
Is that right? Oh,
he didn't have emails. He would remember the letters.
Yes, I do remember.
Put them in his desk, and then he'd look at them and, I can't send that.
All right, we got a whole lot to talk about. I want to mention briefly, because we'll visit this again in a few weeks, but Lisa and I just did the Ancestry DNA tests. I got her his and hers for her birthday a couple of weeks ago, around the Florida trip. And very interesting that, okay, so you spit in this tube and stuff, you seal it up, it's super easy, self-mailing thing, boom, it's gone. Now you got to sign up online. And this is where it gets interesting, because there's a lot of big questions that have to be answered. And it comes back to the main one. The main one is, do we have consent to store your DNA for the future? And they sell it as, so if you want to know something in the future, you don't have to purchase a new test again. We have everything on file. And for scientific reasons, that you can help humankind by allowing us to do future testing and stuff like that. So I take that, I filled out this thing for both Lisa and I walked in and I'm talking to her. I'm like, at this point, and I'm like, what do you think about this? Do we give consent for them to store this in the future? And I explained it. She goes, yeah, sure, of course. And I'm like, not really. I don't think I'm on board with it. She's like, why? And I said, well, for all the reasons that I can't think of right now. And there's some really important information right there that I think that they're sitting on, like, that's the way Google started. They were collecting the information. They weren't sure what they're going to do with it yet, but they knew it was valuable. Same thing. So I thought about it a little bit, and I said to her, what if, for instance, they wanted to take a bunch, the scientists, the government purchases a whole crap load of DNA from them to put into a rover that goes to Mars, and they're going to colonize Mars using this DNA that will then grow clones, and these clones will be virtual slaves building a habitat on Mars. Now, listen to this, Merle. I want to see where you weigh in on this, because I just started thinking about it. What if I was dead? I'm in heaven, living the life of Riley. Things are perfect. And then someone goes and grows a clone of me, and slowly my consciousness is getting pulled out of heaven and back into that clone. And now I'm on Mars.
Okay. That sounds like hell right there. I mean, you make it to heaven, and now you're stranded on Mars. What a terrible. This would be a great movie, actually.
That's what I said to her, but I said these are things we don't know, and these are the things that I said. It's I'm worried about the things I don't know about. Needless to say,
I think that's a good point.
We're not letting them store our DNA. But I wanted your opinion.
I love how you took it to almost a sci-fi point right there, where your conscience. I saw that movie with Keanu Reeves, The Matrix, like that kind of thing happening right there. That was really cool, actually. I don't know. I mean, from a Christian perspective, I don't think that would happen. I think that the clone itself would, even though it's a clone, it would have its own soul and everything. So it would be its own person. That's my understanding. Yeah. Well, we've seen. I mean, they are cloning now, and
Animals.
Who knows?
There's human clones out there.
And I think they're their own person and everything, and we have twins too, which is sort of the same thing. And I don't know. I just think that the whole thing of your premise of not doing it because of the things you don't know, I think that's a pretty powerful premise. Because you're using the Google thing. That's a great analogy too, because like you said, they didn't know what to do. Then they figured out, wait a second, we could use these people and make a ton of money off of them because of their data, and we could sell that. Well, gosh, how much more personal can you get than your DNA? I mean, this is the most personal part of you is out there. And when I did my DNA thing, I remember I was pretty excited to find out all this information. I don't think I had like a thing to fill out like that, where I had to give permission like that. I don't remember. But the fact is that when you send it in, they still have your DNA, and who knows what they're going to do with it, even if you say not. And I remember my brother and I both had an opportunity to do this, and I did it and he didn't. And it was because of exactly that premise.
I know. I remember.
I've thought about it ever since. Like, oh, should I have done that?
Here's another thing I read about that is truly happening is that they are using it. I forget the legalities of how this is being done, why this is being done, but people that have donated sperm or adopted kids that have been adopted are finding their biological parents, and most often these biological parents don't want to be found. And but this is what's happening, and so then it's a whole nother set of heartbreak that these people have been wondering their whole life who their parent was, and then they find out and then go through another set of rejection a lot of times. I mean, other times it can be reconciliation.
I've heard good stories and I've heard bad stories on that whole thing, but I mean, there is a risk on both sides. I mean, the parent doesn't want to be found, and what if the kid finds out that the parent is a really bad person? And that could be psychologically damaging as well. So there's a lot to think about.
There is
this whole thing.
And I think we're going to uncover more and more, but we'll get back to that in a few weeks when I get my results. Can't wait to find out what we really are, and I'll share that with you here. So current events and politics, we got a lot to talk about. There's two main things that I want to bring up, and you go with whatever you want.
Okay.
One is the whole Asian racist thing now that there's our new cultural far left thing to divide and conquer. So there's that. It is everywhere, all within the last week or two. So everything is about racism against Asians now. And it took them a while to get to the Asians. I've mentioned that before, but figured it would sooner or later. The other is Biden. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. He goes and they pull it out of him, calling Russian what's his name, Putin killer.
Putin,
and, kicking up dirt there. That is just, oh my God. Now, if the whole time Trump was leading up to his presidency, to the whole time he was in it, we're hearing how he was going to send us into World War III. He actually did quite the opposite. He de-armed a lot of situations and then now look what we got here. So which of those two do you want to go with? Go ahead.
Let's go with Putin first, because I think this is awesome.
I think it's scary.
This has happened. Well, here's what Putin finally came back with a response. Because the first response was pretty soft, but the second response that he came back with, I thought, from a political opportunist deal, that this is a pretty strong move that he made. And he says, here's what he says: I want to propose to President Biden to continue our discussions, but on the condition that we do it basically live, as it's called, without any delays, and directly in an open, direct discussion.
That's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen, and he knows it, and and Putin knows why. Is that Biden's got a tough time. He has a tough time communicating.
He's not all there. Yeah.
He's not going to be able to stand up to Putin's stuff. And so I think it was a mistake for Biden to come out and say that. But I don't know.
Anytime
bottom line is Putin is a killer. That's the truth. Putin's a killer. He's ex-KGB. I mean, how many times have we heard about some kind of foreign diplomat that's been poisoned by the Russians?
Yes,
And he's behind it every time.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is one time I actually agree with Biden. And but now he's got to pony up and respond back to Putin, and I don't know what he's going to do now.
Wasn't that Steve? What's his name? The interviewer, Papanopoulos.
I don't know who you're talking about.
That dude that interviewed him pulled that out of him. He just basically, Biden is easy.
I didn't see the interview, actually.
I saw that clip of it, but it's easy. God, I can't think of his name. You know him. The guy
I know who you're talking about. The Clinton administration guy, George
Stephanopoulos. Jeez, Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
But it's easy to tweak Biden's ego. He thinks of himself as something of a tough guy and stuff. So it's like, do you think he's a killer? Well, what is Biden going to say? Oh, no, that's what he's afraid of doing. No, he wants to stand up straight and like get in your face and put on his sunglasses and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he should, the guy, boy, as cringy as Trump always is and was in front of a camera, couldn't stand watching him. Biden is just like people. I know the whole Democratic Party, Pelosi and all of them are just biting their fingernails the whole time he's in front of a camera.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's shocking, and especially shocking is when you see his press secretary, Jen Psaki.
Yes.
She's just she just doesn't seem to know anything, and I just think that they're putting on a bad face here. But I got more on that. But I know you wanted to move on to the
no. I wanted to say you brought up
interesting.
You brought up Psaki, and there's a few things there. First of all, as you just said, she doesn't seem to know anything. Everything that they ran on, they're completely hypocritical about. They wanted to say that they're going to be the most transparent administration ever. And they are the least transparent administration ever. Yeah, she hides behind this cloud of ignorance, and she just doesn't know how to deal with things. And then she just slipped up and finally called the border debacle a crisis.
A crisis, right.
Yeah, and then she had to walk it back for the next 10 minutes. So this administration is as much heat as they gave the Trump administration. And this is another thing that bothers me so much, is that they will double down on this anti-Trump stuff until they drill us into the ground. Because if Trump backed it, then it must be bad. Because Orange Man bad. And frankly, he was doing a lot of things right, like handling the border situation, which is a tough call. It's a very tough situation to handle in every regard. But he was doing a heck of a lot better job than doing the opposite of what he did. Now look where we're at with the kids in cages problem, tripled, and we don't even know, and we can't even talk about it. It can't even be discussed.
No, it can't. It's really terrible what's happening at the border right now. This is you're right. They said that they were going to be transparent. They're not transparent. They're not letting reporters do ride-alongs down at the border right now. They're not letting them film anything in the containment centers. This is really terrible. And they're moving, 3,000 migrant teens to the Dallas Convention Center, which is outrageous that they would do this. There was a policy change that happened here with the Biden administration coming in, where unaccompanied minors, I've said this before, they get a free pass. They come across the border. Studies are showing right now that the sheriffs actually have been testing these people after they get released into our society, and they're finding on average about 12% of them actually have COVID. They're letting people with COVID into our country right now. They're putting kids, migrant kids, in close quarters all together, 3,000 of them inside of this enclosed place. Well, our kids aren't even allowed to go to school in most states right now. We're not allowed to go to games and be in close proximity. But all bets are off when it comes to bringing these migrant children into the country. It's really sent a double message. COVID is terrible, be aware, but we're going to let all these people in that have COVID. And I don't know, man, it's a terrible message they're sending right now.
Complete hypocrisy. Anything else you want to go with that? Because I do want to get back to the Asian thing.
Yeah, why don't we go to that? Because we'll come back to this.
Sure, that's fine. But yeah, the headlines are out the wazoo. I mentioned that I like to go on Daily Mail almost every day to see the sensationalized headlines on just about everything. It's just a one pager where I can check it all out. And yesterday it was Asian this, Asian that, all the way through. So we know about the shooter in Atlanta or somewhere in Georgia.
Yeah, it was in Atlanta.
Yeah, that went through the massage parlors, which 6 out of the 8 happened to be Asian, which is, well, they questioned him right away, of course, asking if it was racially motivated. He said no and divulged his sex addiction problem. But of course, the mainstream media just goes for the race thing every time. And so I think this really seemed to start, as far as I saw, about 3 weeks ago or so, when I saw the video of a happened to be a black guy, but a guy clocking a 91-year-old Asian guy. It was caught.
I saw that too.
Yeah, and that's where it seemed to really get started. So of course, it wasn't like some mental guy or drug addict guy, it became about race immediately. It wasn't that clocked an elderly man. No, it had to be an Asian man and all of that.
Right.
And so now it's, we got some kind of a hearing going on Capitol Hill about the crisis point for Asians in the community, anti-Asian hate hearing. That's what it is in Congress. I got that's on ABC News. Wow. Let's see. So a Cherokee County, Georgia sheriff is trying to get canceled. They're trying to cancel him for allegedly posting a photo of a racist anti-Asian T-shirt that says, in quotes, COVID-19 imported virus from China. So there's a great big hoo-ha there, which it is exactly that. Okay.
I just
so here's the angle is now that if we say anything about China because of COVID-19, then it's misconstrued as racist. Now, every time that anybody's dissing China because of destroying the world practically with COVID-19 and their carelessness at this lab, which is probably what happened, we are talking about the government. I could tell you, I could talk about China all day long with a lot of disdain. I really can.
Right.
And I'm talking about the government. And everybody is. People do not hate Chinese people. Now, I will say the other morning on the local news, I wake up, get my coffee, listen to the local news. And yes, they found a victim in Chinatown, downtown Cleveland, where somebody called in and said something derogatory about, you guys brought the Chinese virus here, COVID-19 here.
Right.
You could find a crank phone call all day long everywhere. I used to make them when my friends and I used to make them when we were kids. I mean, it's terrible. Don't want people to feel bad. But my point is this is yet again one of those, this is the latest way that they found to spread racism. And it's completely divisive. It gets us all up in arms and distracted by everything else. And here is another thing. Rogan had Mike Baker on his podcast just a couple of days ago. They were talking about this. They were talking about, in the same vein, the election problems as well. And Mike Baker is ex-CIA. He's been on before. He's very intelligent, very well spoken, and talked about how China and Russia there's just such a strategic, organized strategy where they infiltrate social media all day long, adding fuel to the fire of all of this stuff. So, I mean, as much as you think the election was a debacle, boy, without all of the lies that they can't pumping into there to get everybody fueled up, I mean, it's they just made a mountain out of a molehill compared to what was happening. This anti-Asian or anti-racist anything all day long. They have tons of people that they pay to fuel the fire on social media.
Oh yeah. I agree with that. And this is really the tactics that's being used right now originated with the advent of communism. And we're seeing that. Yeah, we're seeing that strategy playing out where it's not just propaganda, it's dividing people
Yeah.
into little tiny tribes so they can't be united anymore. You see,
Yes.
if you're going to have a tyrannical government, you can't have the people united, because if they are united, they can easily overpower you. So it's very important that you divide these people, and the folks in the USSR understood that, and they understood the politics, the racism politics that they could take advantage of to destroy this country. They've been doing this same play for a long time. The unfortunate thing is that we have a large contingent in government that has taken advantage of this. I just want to point out something. This is all happening with the majority Democratic Party, or Democrat Party that's in there. And when you start to really think about this whole Asian thing, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, because we've got academia where places like Harvard are limiting the amount of Asians that are admitted into the school, because these Asians culturally are really devoted to their studies. I mean, that's a big deal. So
because
a lot of them qualify for high level Ivy League school admittance, and they are cutting down to allow other people in, like Black people, for instance, into the school, or other white people that I mean, it's discrimination. Let's just put it out there. They're being discriminated against by the most liberal bastions in the country. And then this is only about coronavirus.
Wait a minute.
It's not about Chinese racism.
I want to put a pinnacle on what you just said. They're being discriminated against, ultimately having the highest ratio of nuclear family held together. That's where it comes from.
That's why they're doing so well. And it comes back to the parenting. And this is a powerful thing that they've brought to our country. And now, you know, the only reason that they're coming out and saying Asian racism is because of this whole Wuhan thing. And if we start to embrace the fact that this was done purposely by the Chinese government, that breaks apart the whole strategy of let's divide these people with racism, and so they have to fight against that. That's what it looks like to me. It seems pretty obvious.
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, it is. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
There you go. It's awful. And so while they're discriminating against Asians, have the highest rate of a successful family nucleus, at least likely to divorce, is what I'm trying to say, not so eloquently. So we are punishing those people while we reward people to have kids out of wedlock, to not have together families,
a nuclear family, right?
Yes.
Look at the Black community. Right now, 70% of Black children are growing up in a single household. That's up 50% from the 1960s, when it was 24%. And the 1960s brought on the Civil Rights Act, which brought on this compensation for having children out of wedlock. And lo and behold, we've got a huge problem as a result. And we know, I mean, even President Obama said that, you know, if you're growing up without a father, you're going to have all of these problems inherently. You're going to be more likely to end up in prison. You're going to be more likely to end up in poverty. Everybody knows this. It's just the bottom line.
Well, it's very true. And especially when you don't have a father that shows you how to manage your feelings and rise to the occasion and stuff, that you grow up acting out. You grow up looking on the streets to find your place.
Well, that's absolutely the truth. Hey, I want to move on. I wanted to cover one thing here before we go on. Oh, we never did. Did we? Oh, yeah. So did we tie off on the Asian the thing that happened with this guy? Yeah, I think we're done on that, right?
I think so. I had so many headlines that I just copied and pasted in here, but the point is, I just want to bring it to the forefront that the ridiculousness that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's no racism out there and against Asians or anybody else, but
Right.
countering it with more racism, dividing us up into races, and that's all you see is wrong, and it
I totally
perpetuates
agree
the
with you.
problem. Oh, there was this Teen Vogue editor. 27. Here's another one, a way that cancel culture just got hold of this. This is like yesterday. She resigns over anti-Asian tweets that she wrote as a teenager. And let's see, lost a 7-figure ad campaign over her appointment. I don't remember what that was about, but so she wrote some like slightly racist jokes, something about, I don't want to be hungover, so my eyes look Asian when I wake up in the morning because I have an interview.
Okay, that's not racist. Sorry.
I know, trying to make a joke. There can be no humor in this leftist society.
Well, that's the thing, is they're not funny.
No,
they're just not funny.
Miserable.
They don't understand humor. Yeah, they're basically very miserable, unhappy people. But
absolutely.
And speaking of that, if you take a look at what's happening, I think it's important right now that we pay particular attention to what's happening in our House of Representatives, because the nuttiness that's going on over there is really over the top. I've never seen anything like this. The bills that are being passed right now, I think it's important. There's 2 bills right now that are up that are extremely controversial. The first one is HR 1, and it's called For the People Act of 2021, and this completely will change America for all time if this thing passes. Have you heard anything about this, Barry?
Tell me.
I'm going to read you a couple of things that this does, and it changes how we vote in America. Remember, we spent a lot of time going over the Constitution, and the states actually have control over how elections happen in each of their states. The federal government is trying to take over everything election now that they have control in the House and in the Senate on the Democratic Party. But I'll just read a couple of headlines here. So number 1, it gives the federal government authority to administer elections. Although the Constitution gives the states the authority, they found a loophole, so they'll be 100% in charge. It limits a plaintiff's access to federal courts when challenging HR 1. So if you got a problem with how voting happened, you're very limited in what you can do legally regarding that. It mandates automatic voter registration in all 50 states. So everyone's just automatically registered. And that could be, if you're an illegal, you could be automatically registered. You will be automatically registered, as a matter of fact. It mandates no fault absentee ballots. That means no need for a witness signature or notarization anymore. You can just send them in. Prevents election officials from removing ineligible voters from registry or confirming the eligibility of qualifications for voters. So you're not allowed to make sure that their information is right. It bans state voter ID laws. It ensures illegal immigrants can vote. The bill shields non-citizens from prosecution if they are registered to vote, so illegal immigrants can vote. Allows same-day voter registration. So, like, for instance, in Georgia, when we had that runoff election, that just, thousands of people could just come across the border and register in the same day. And I don't know how they can track that whole thing. It allows 16-year-olds to register to vote. Prohibit. This goes on and on.
That's ridiculous.
Prohibits the publication of misleading information about elections. Who's in charge of that? That sounds like censorship. Allows felons to vote. Mandates early voting. Legalizes nationwide mail-in voting without photo ID. Promotes ballot harvesting, so somebody can just collect like thousands of ballots and turn them in. Who knows if they filled them out themselves or not? They probably did. Requires states to accept ballots 10 days after elections. Prohibits state election officials from campaigning in federal elections. Requires college and universities to hire campus vote coordinators. It just goes on, and all of it favors the Democrat Party. and
Oh, sure.
none of it favors the Republican Party.
Sure.
It basically enshrines the Democrat Party in the federal government as in control from here on.
Yeah. Don't know what to add to that. Think you put it pretty eloquently. I wanted to see your thoughts on Biden says he has plans small to significant tax hike. That was in quotes, small to significant tax hike on those making over $400,000. Let's see. Republicans are sure to oppose any such effort by the president and his Democratic allies. Quote, anybody making over 400,000 will see a small to significant tax increase, he told ABC News. If you make less than 400,000, you won't see one single penny in additional federal income tax. I know.
I don't believe it.
When does the bait and switch? When is the bait and switch?
Yeah, that never works. It never works. We've heard that kind of rhetoric before. And by the way, this is the problem with the federal government taking authority over these types of things instead of letting the states have authority over this, because $400,000 in South Dakota is way different than $400,000 in Cleveland, Ohio, or way different than $400,000 in Southern California or San Francisco, for example. So you can't just put that. It's sort of like the $15 an hour minimum wage. I mean, $15 an hour is great if you're in Tupelo, Mississippi, but here in Los Angeles, you're in trouble at that. You're not going to be able to afford a family and college education at that. So this is a problem. And here's the other thing with that $1.9 trillion stimulus package that went through. That is a boatload of money right there. People don't understand. I was just having a conversation with somebody. Oh, we got this infrastructure problem. We only need $2 trillion to fix these 3,000 bridges. And I'm like, $2 trillion? Do you realize how much money that is? Well, we just passed $2 trillion. I'm like, that is do you realize that we don't in a year, all the money America makes is less than 20 trillion, and you're going to take 2 trillion, you're going to take 10% off the top. That is a ginormous amount of money right there.
You know what it says to me?
So the fact is,
we're getting taxed too much. We're getting taxed too much. Well, if they can throw around trillions like this, and I know it's borrowed, but even if they think they can, hey, how about cutting our taxes at least in half? Okay. Yeah.
Well, this was my point, Barry, is that if this small to significant, boy, I used to be a carny. Okay, that means significant. That means you're going to get a big tax increase and everyone's going to get it. There's no way we can afford the money that's pouring out of Washington right now. And what I'm hearing is taxes are about to go sky high. Corporate tax rates are going to go up. All of our tax rates are going to go up right now. We can't afford what they just put through. No, and totally. Everyone is this is about to be a tax nightmare. And this is what we voted for.
Yeah. Well, I think we got a lot of bait and switch, and we got a lot more to see.
We did. And the first one was the most transparent administration ever. This is, like you said, this is the least transparent government that we've ever seen, or administration that we've ever seen. They're not talking about anything. I just wanted to go back to the immigration thing, Barry. Well, they got to Kamala Harris and they asked her, well, what do you think about the crisis at the border? She said, I haven't been briefed yet. And then she took off. You haven't been briefed yet? Are you kidding me? This is a complete sidestep. And what this is censorship. It's complete censorship that we're getting. And speaking of censorship, remember back in January with the Georgia presidential count, and they said that Trump had a conversation with the Secretary of State down there and said, demanded that he go and find fraud, and that'll make him a hero if he finds it. And this was, Trump's trying to manipulate the vote. Well, they've had to come out and say that this was fraudulent. These quotes were fraudulent, that Trump never found it. And the reason that they said it is they found the audio tape of the call. And this just goes to show you what the mainstream media, all the mainstream, it was CNN and ABC and NBC, they were all saying the same thing. This is what they're doing. They're manipulating us by falsifying information left and right. Not calling the border crisis a crisis is a sin. I mean, we are being manipulated here. And do you think that the majority of Americans are catching on, Barry?
I don't know. It made me think of something I completely forgot about, and that is Crystal and Sagar, who I bring up from time to time, have a great show called The Rising on YouTube, and I strongly recommend you check it out. They make great points all the time, very significant ones, and they were talking about the mainstream media and how, it's cable news. And cable news has been struggling now for years because of the more predominance of online stuff, like this show here, like Crystal and Sagar. But boy, they found a golden goose when Trump came about. And so the ratings went up, and that's why everything was Trump. And I have a couple graphs that I can share with you that they shared. I screen captured them. And
I want to see.
Yeah, I got to find them. I think this is it. And so since Trump left office, do you see this?
Oh, I have the same stats. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is worth talking about. Don Lemon, who turns
Look
my
at
stomach.
that.
He is
Me
down
too.
32.5% now.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
And there you go. And talk about misinformation. So what they were saying, and first of all, let's face it, 4 years of the Russian hoax, which anybody with that didn't have their head buried in the sand knew was a hoax. So the misinformation that they've been using, desperately trying to retain ratings. Well, it was working for a lot of people. Trump, as I said, was a golden goose. Now he's gone. They still try to talk about him as much as possible. The current administration is still obsessed with Trump in their behavior, trying to undo anything that he ever did. With being
they're blaming the whole border crisis on him. And it's pretty amazing. Last year at this time we had 300 minors come across the border in February, and this year it was 1,000. I mean, I don't know how you can blame this on Trump, and especially the rhetoric that's going out that, hey, you got a free pass, come on in, and by the way, we're going to pass legislation, and in fact it just passed the House that would legalize all of the dreamers. So basically what's happening right now is the message to the border, people coming across the border, is hurry up and get across the border so that you get in before that bill passes, so you'll have automatic citizenship. That's what's happening. And just to go off on a little bit of that graph that you just showed, I thought it was interesting on there that Tucker and Hannity on Fox News also lost market share.
Yes.
That part was because they've been capitalizing on this Trump thing too. And they're being hurt as well. CNN really had gotten hurt, and I thought the interesting thing is that they're trying to find a new Trump, and Brian Stelter came out with a new way, and what he said was that I thought this was kind of funny, is that Tucker Carlson is the new Donald Trump. Tucker has taken Trump's place as a right-wing leader, an outrage generator, a fire starter. Boy, they just need to demonize people. That's what the news has become. And this whole movement that we've had that's sparking racism is the same thing. We got to find people to hate, and that's selling advertising right now like hotcakes. And it's brainwashing the whole country into thinking we're this terribly racist thing. White children are being taught that they're inherently racist and they can't help it, so now they have to take classes so that they can wash all of their dirty racism off of each other. I think that what's happening right now is some of the most racist stuff that I've seen, and it's towards white people since before the civil rights movement against black people. It was just like we're switching places right now, which proves that it's not a white issue or a black issue or a yellow issue. It's a human issue. And people, when they get power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And these are the things that happen. But to think that we're solving it by being racist towards white people, we're delusional.
I cannot agree with you more. And I don't know if I could say it much better, but when you said they're looking for their new Trump, I was going to say, yeah, it's called white supremacy. I thought that's what it was. My own mother.
I had one more thing I wanted to throw out, but go ahead.
Well, my own mother the other day in the car said, I forget the context of the conversation, but she replied within, she's all into the CNN thing. And it's common. You can pick out a CNN viewer a million miles away. They live in this whole era of, she said, well, maybe that's the white supremacists. And I forget the context of the conversation. But when I heard that, I said, my immediate reply was, I never met a white supremacist. And she goes, I'm sure you have. You just don't know it. So that's
they're all around you, Barry.
But this is what I hear. And this is what disgusts me is hearing white people talk about white people all of a sudden, all the time.
That's what it is.
And they don't realize that this is a new thing for them. Like this is their new norm.
Right.
Yeah. That's weird, man. That amount of manipulation is, how can you not see that? How can you not see that?
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of blindness that's going on out here. I wanted to bring up another thing that's happening in the House right now, and that is this whole thing about reparations that's happening. And we can talk about this on the next show, but that's actually being discussed, reparations for Black people. It
can't happen.
They're trying to do a study on this, and there are so many things wrong with
it. Can't happen. It's impossible.
Figure out. Yeah, it is impossible. First, the number one thing is that most Black people in the United States have white blood in them.
Yeah, and wait till we get our DNA test back. I know Lisa's going to have a lot, and like I told you, if it's a leftist movement, I'm going to identify as Black. What are you going to do about it? Give me reparations.
Why not? Why not be you could be a Black transsexual.
Sure.
You can really throw that out.
What point in that DNA test are you Black or not Black? They're going to have to decide that.
Boy, this is something my mother is really big on, is that here in the United States, that for being Black is in the one drop theory. If you have one drop of Black blood in you, you're Black.
So we're going to pay ourselves.
That's always been how it is. So that's the problem. And in fact, Larry Elder was called in to testify on, it's called HR 40. Okay. So this is interesting that it's called, I don't know how they come up with these numbers. But at the end of the war, Civil War, reparations, they talked about giving slaves 40 acres and a mule. So now we have HR 40. This is kind of interesting how they came up with that number. But Larry Elder was testifying on this, and he was saying the same thing, like, hey, Barack Obama, he's got, his mother, they've got a history of slavery in their family. And Barack Obama's dad, he was in Kenya. 90% of the slaves that came over across the ocean were sold by Africans to the Europeans. So he's saying, well, look at Barack Obama. Does he have to pay? Should Africa pay for reparations since they sold all of their people over? Who pays and who gets paid? Like you said, if you have a drop of Black blood in you, do you get paid? I mean, myself personally, I did the DNA test. It turns out I'm like 53% European. So what do I get? Write a check with one hand and receive it with the other one? I mean, it's
ridiculous.
It's just, none of this makes any sense. It's
just
absolute ridiculous. And then when you take a look at some of the studies that they have out there, man, Black people here in the United States who do far better than Black people anywhere else in the world, even Africa. And if you put Black people together and put them into a country all by themselves, they would be the 17th wealthiest country in the world. There's like over 300 countries out there. We would be number 17. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
There you go. Okay, with that, we need to wrap that part up. We're going to talk about quickly some lighter stuff, and then we are going to segue into our after show, which, by the way, will come, the link for it will come into the notes if you sign up for our email list at Over 50 Starting Over. Comes right into your email box. So in the after show, it's just Merle and I wrapping up, and especially with subjects that we didn't get to in this show, because one of them I want to talk about Gavin Newsom. Can't wait.
Oh, that's a great one.
It is. I want to put out there for you that in the near future, last week would have been a good week for it. We had such a loose podcast and it was just a lot of fun and everything. We were in this mood. Want to do impressions. So think about it.
Impressions.
I got a couple good impressions I do, but think about it. And so we'll come back to that. I just wanted to mention that I found
funny, Barry.
I found a fan.
Bring Scott on for that.
Oh my, yes. Oh, I know.
He's the master.
He would not. He won't. I've tried to get him on.
Yeah, but he could imitate you and me.
Oh,
like he could have a conversation
funny.
And it would be me and you, and it would all be coming from him.
We would be dying laughing.
I know, right?
Oh my! So
he does a good impression of you, by the way.
I bet he does. I think it's easy to do a good impression of me. To make it a little more caricature. I was told all the time back in like our college days when I waited table. They always said, "You sound like Alf." Remember that?
That's not a compliment.
But I have a distinctive voice. It's true. It's true. I wanted to just leave you with that. You know how it's cool when you find a new TV show that it's like, wow, you're excited for that brief period of time. Yeah. Well, Apple TV, Ted Lasso. And Lisa told me about it. It stars Jason Sudeikis, who I love.
I like him too.
Oh my God. I absolutely love that guy.
Saturday Night Live.
Yes, but I first discovered him on that movie, We Are the Millers, him and Jennifer Aniston.
That was a great movie.
Hysterical movie. And it's him. He's got this loose way about him. He's so likable and funny.
And the expressions on his face and everything. He's really good at it.
So
Jennifer Aniston was awesome in that movie.
The movie was so funny, except for that scene where she kisses the kid. That was creepy. It still creeps me out thinking about it.
I must have blocked that out of my memory.
I think so. So anyways, Ted Lasso is it's a small-time football coach. His name is Ted Lasso, which is weird that his last name is Lasso. Why? I don't know. There's no reason for it. But his name is Ted Lasso. He's hired to coach a professional soccer team in England. Okay, so despite having no experience in ever coaching soccer. So he's way out of his league there. You know what soccer's like in England, right? And so he brings his coach partner with him, and they come in, and it's all about like the owner of this soccer team inherited it from her ex-husband, who she hates now. So she wants to actually drill it into the ground. That's why she hired him.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And he plays the most affable, always positive guy. He's got a Southern drawl. He's from Kansas, but he's fast talking. Everything's an analogy. That's just like this. And it's a feel good. The whole premise of it's a feel good. It's always conquering all of these odds and all these people against them and all this stuff. You would love it. It's so well.
That sounds great, actually. Ted Lasso.
Yeah, and it's got a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and 90 plus 97%, I think, in Google reviews. So from reviewers. Great. I binged the whole 10 season or whatever, 10 episode season in like a week. So there you have it. You can sign up for it. Okay, Apple TV is only like $10 a month, but who needs yet another $10 added on? You can sign up for a 7-day free thing for Apple TV and just binge it all.
There you go. Cool. That's pretty good. Good advice. And it's so good to get these kinds of things. It's hard to find good material. So thanks for doing that, Barry.
Sure, absolutely. All right. With that, guys, we got to get out of here because we went a little over. Sorry about that. Have a great weekend. And if you want to catch the after show, check out the link in the show notes at over50startingover.com.
Right on.
See you.